Dexter Morgan kill Kim Jong-un? What happens when the world's most dangerous serial killer meets one of the world's most heavily protected leaders? On one side, you have Dexter Morgan, a forensic blood spatter analyst who secretly hunts people he believes deserve to die. On the other, Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, surrounded by layers of security, intelligence officers, loyal guards, and a system designed to protect him from threats almost nobody can even reach. So here's the question. If Dexter Morgan had one mission, find Kim Jong-un and kill him, could he actually do it? At first, Dexter seems like the obvious winner. But the deeper you look, this matchup becomes terrifyingly close. Dexter's greatest weapon isn't a knife. It isn't his physical strength, and it definitely isn't his job. It's patience. Dexter can spend weeks or months studying a target. He watches behavior. He looks for patterns. He studies mistakes. And most importantly, Dexter understands something that normal assassins don't. People lie. Dexter is exceptionally good at reading people and manipulating situations while appearing completely normal. That's what makes him so dangerous. He doesn't need to overpower someone. He needs to understand them. And if Dexter were investigating Kim Jong-un, he wouldn't immediately think, how do I get close to him? He'd think, what makes this man predictable? That's where the psychological battle begins. But here's Dexter's problem. Most of Dexter's victims are ordinary people. They have jobs, they have homes, they have routines, they interact with other people, they make mistakes. Kim Jong-un operates in a completely different world. He's a head of state. His movements and public appearances are heavily controlled. He isn't casually walking into a crime scene. He isn't living like Dexter's usual targets. And that's a massive disadvantage for Dexter, because Dexter's entire hunting style depends on getting close enough to study his victim. Against Kim Jong-un, getting close is the hardest part of the entire challenge. Dexter could be the smartest man in the room. But if he can't reach the room, his intelligence doesn't matter. And this is where the matchup gets interesting. Dexter isn't fighting one person. He's fighting an entire security environment. Imagine Dexter somehow getting past one layer. There's another, and another, and another. Even if Dexter is incredibly intelligent, every additional layer creates another opportunity for him to make a mistake. And Dexter does make mistakes. That's something fans sometimes forget. Dexter isn't Batman. He's not an unstoppable superhuman. He's a fictional serial killer with exceptional investigative instincts. He gets injured. He gets emotional. He becomes reckless. And sometimes his own obsession causes him to make terrible decisions. Against an ordinary target, those mistakes might be survivable. Against a heavily protected world leader, one mistake could end the entire game. Now let's talk about Kim Jong-un. You might think his advantage is physical strength. It isn't. His advantage is the system around him. Dexter is one man. Kim has an enormous state apparatus around him. Intelligence personnel, security personnel, government institutions, controlled environments, and people whose entire purpose is to identify potential threats. That's an enormous problem for Dexter, because Dexter's greatest weapon, secrecy, becomes much less useful when your target exists inside an environment where suspicious behavior is already taken seriously. Dexter is excellent at hiding among normal people. But getting close to one of the most protected political figures in the world? That's an entirely different level of difficulty. However, there's one reason I still wouldn't completely count Dexter out. Dexter doesn't need to win quickly. That's the terrifying part. If you give Dexter enough time in a completely fictional scenario, he becomes increasingly dangerous. He can observe, adapt, wait, and learn. Every failed attempt teaches him something, and Dexter has spent his entire life developing a second identity. That's important, because Dexter's greatest skill isn't killing, it's appearing harmless. He spent years being underestimated. People see a quiet forensic analyst, a socially awkward guy, someone who doesn't look particularly threatening. And that's exactly how Dexter likes it. So, if this were a fictional story where Dexter somehow gained legitimate access to the same environment, the psychological advantage could slowly shift toward him. And that's ultimately what decides this matchup. Not, is Dexter smarter? He probably is in certain areas. Not, is Dexter more dangerous? Absolutely. The real question is, can Dexter ever get close? Because if the answer is no, Kim wins automatically. Dexter can analyze him for years. He can understand his personality, he can predict his behavior, he can build the perfect fictional profile. But none of that matters if he can't reach his target. On the other hand, if the story gives Dexter a believable way into Kim's inner circle, then suddenly the matchup changes dramatically. Because Dexter's specialty is turning access into opportunity. So, who wins? My answer is Kim Jong-un wins about 7 times out of 10. And here's why. Dexter is arguably the more dangerous individual. He's more adaptable, he's exceptionally intelligent, and psychologically, he's terrifying. But Kim doesn't need to personally defeat Dexter. He has something Dexter doesn't: an entire protective system. Dexter's biggest weakness in this matchup is access, and Kim's biggest advantage is that access to him is extremely difficult. However, if we remove the security advantage and put both characters into a controlled environment where Dexter can actually investigate and interact with him, then I would flip the result. Dexter wins. Because once Dexter gets enough information about a target, the target's biggest enemy isn't Dexter's strength, it's Dexter's patience. So, in the real-world style scenario, Kim Jong-un wins 7 out of 10. In a fictional, isolated psychological battle, Dexter Morgan wins 8 out of 10. And that's what makes this matchup so interesting. Because Dexter doesn't need to be stronger than his target. He only needs one thing: time. And if Dexter ever gets enough of it, even the most protected person in the room might start wondering, why is Dexter Morgan watching me?